When I went over the readings earlier in the week, I said, I got this. I preach a whole retreat on the Great Commandments. 3 days worth. Don't worry. I'm not going to do that now. But I did have to stop and think, what would I say about the Great Commandment? This is the executive summary of Christianity. This is Christianity 101. This is like, discipleship for dummies. What should I say in this election season? I thought about that. And then midweek, the Pope talks about, civil unions for same-sex couples. I thought, I should probably talk about that. But there are better commentaries out there on the internet, on TV, in the paper. What I started paying attention to were my conversations with people. Conversations I had on the phone, conversations I had on Zoom, conversations I had in person. And you know what they were about? People were telling me they were exhausted. People were telling me they felt worn out. They felt anxious about the election, anxious about the economy. They were discouraged. Frankly, some were feeling sorry for themselves. And what I found myself talking to them about was not so much love God, not so much love your neighbor, but the third of the three great loves that are mentioned in this gospel. Love God with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love yourself. That's the third great love. And I think as Catholics, we get uneasy about this one because it sounds too much like narcissism. It sounds too much like being selfish. Certainly we don't want to do that. But the fact is, without a healthy sense of self-love, there's no way we can love other people. How else can you give something unless you have it yourself? You can't give what you ain't got. So I'd like to offer 3 suggestions about self-love, about self-care during this particular time. The first is actually based on the third commandment, keep holy the Sabbath. What keep holy the Sabbath means, it's based on Genesis, where God created for 6 days and then rested on the seventh. And for the Jews, keeping holy the Sabbath meant not just resting from work, but resting in God. You use that free time to study the Torah, to pray. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to put a fence around some time and make that our sacred time. Probably on Sunday, that's one reason we come to Mass on Sunday, is to set aside that special sacred time for God, but some personal Sabbath time when you can rest in God and let God love you. And that's what I try and do is in my meditation, my daily meditation, just breathe in God's love. Just open my heart and let God love me. And then I have something to give to other people. So you breathe in God's love. And here's the second suggestion. Breathe out shame. My second suggestion is that we shun shame. I think a lot of us, whether it was the way we were raised or whatever, live with a certain amount of shame. We feel like there's something about us that's a mistake. We feel like there's some imperfection. We have a hard time loving ourselves because we know ourselves too well. One of my favorite lines of poetry comes from Leonard Cohen, the Canadian singer-songwriter. In one of his songs, he says, "Everything has a crack in it. That's how the light gets in." We're all imperfect. We're made imperfect. God knows we're imperfect. But Leonard Cohen could have been paraphrasing St. Paul, who said, "In my weakness, God's power reaches perfection." I have to let that crack in me open up and let God's power in. Be imperfect before God and let God love me in my imperfection. So the first suggestion, keep holy the Sabbath, rest in God. Second suggestion, shun shame. Embrace our imperfection. God loves us imperfectly as we are. We can love ourselves as well. And the final suggestion is reach out for love. One of the things I've done during this pandemic, I went through my phone book, my contact lists, and I found 30 people that I hadn't talked to in a while. People from my past, people who I really love, people who I think love me too. And I decided to just create like a calendar. I put their name and their phone number on each day for 30 days. And then each day I would reach out to one of them. Oftentimes I would leave a message. Many times they would call me back. But I had 30 days of reaching out in love with the hope of receiving love back. So if you're feeling lonely, feeling discouraged, feeling some self-pity, reach out for love. Because what I found is that when somebody called me back, oftentimes it would be in an odd moment, but it was always like, yeah, I've got time to talk now. And we would have a great conversation. And at the end, I would feel grateful. And when I feel grateful, it's very difficult for me at the same time to feel sorry for myself. So I had 30 days of reaching out in love, receiving love, and feeling grateful about it. It's one of the ways I can love myself. So the great commandment, 3 great loves: love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. In order to love our neighbor, we have to love ourselves. So the way we can love ourselves is to keep holy the Sabbath, invite God's love in, shun any shame, and reach out to others in love.